Hey friend, John McLennan here, and in this video I'm going to show you the 4 must-know chords for all guitar players. Now this video is going to be a little bit different. I wanted to share with you a lesson that I wish I had gotten earlier on, and I know this would have helped me make more sense of music in general and be able to play songs faster and conquer specific chord changes that I struggled with along my journey. But real quick, before we get into those 4 chords, if you're new to the channel, I want to give you a gift right away. I put together this awesome fretboard guide that maps out the entire fretboard, and this is a system that I use for putting together chords and scales on the guitar neck. I want to give it to you completely for free. All you got to do is go to johnmclennan.com/fretboard guide or click the first link down below as my gift to you. All right, well, with that said, let's get into these chords. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about theory. I'm going to show you what I call a triad chord, just using 3 notes. And then I'm going to show you a more practical voicing that I would use if I was playing guitar to a song, maybe accompanying someone or just playing at home. Now, the first chord you need to know is a major chord. Now, with all these shapes that I show you, I'm going to show you what are called movable chords. So we're not going to be using open strings like, say, a chord like this, just a typical C. What we're going to do is we're going to start here, higher up the neck. We're going to use what's called a triad. And as I mentioned, this just has 3 notes in it. The notes that I'm using here are C, E, and G. And I'm starting on the 4th string here. That's the 10th fret, the 9th fret, and then the 8th fret, just going down string to string. Now, any chord like C, G, D, A, all of those chords are what we call triads. So even though you may play all 6 strings, like a chord like this, there's still only 3 notes in that chord. Now, if we just back up here, the notes from that chord come from what we call the major scale. So let's say we're in the key of C and we have a C major scale, which might look something like this. This is the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And what we do is we take the first note, the 3rd note, and the 5th note of that scale. So that's going to be C, E, and G. And anywhere on the neck we play those 3 notes together, we're going to get a C chord. So that gives you a ton of possibilities. Like you could play a C bar chord like this. Or you could do C like this. Or like this. Or maybe down here. There is a ton of possibilities, as I mentioned, so that's what we're looking at here. This first chord is the notes C, E, and G. And this is easier to see because they're all in a row. This is the root, the 3rd, and the 5th, again, of C, E, G, that C major scale. So that's the first chord you need to know is a major chord, and again, it's just root, 3rd, and 5th. Now the next chord that you need to know is a minor chord. Now what we do is we take that basic major chord, we're just going to change 1 note in that chord and you're going to get a minor chord. So here you have C, E, and G. What we're going to do is take that middle note, E, and we're going to drop it 1 fret. It's going to become the note E flat. So C, E flat, G. And now we have a C minor chord. So it becomes root, flat 3rd, 5th from that scale. So the major is 1, 3, 5. The minor is 1 flat 3, 5. Major, minor. So those are the 2 most popular chords. You know, in most music we hear nowadays, we're going to be using major and minor chords. But there's actually 2 other chord shapes that you need to become familiar with, and those are augmented chords and diminished chords. Now those chords aren't as popular in, most pop music nowadays, but when you go back to the 60s and 70s, you're going to hear them used all the time, and definitely in a lot of the big band music and jazz and standards, you're going to run into these chord shapes quite frequently. So let's check it out. So let's go back to our C, E, G. This is a C major chord, the root third fifth. So we flatted that third. Now let's experiment with some other options here. If we take the fifth, C, E, G, which is this note here, and we raise it up 1 fret, that becomes root third sharp 5. Now we have what's called an augmented chord. So that's going to be C, E, G sharp, where the frets are 10, 9, 9. And it has a different sound to it, right? Here's the major. Here's the augmented. So it's a beautiful sound there, having that raised fifth. And that's what augmented means. You've got that plus 5. Sometimes you'll see just the plus symbol written for this. Sometimes you'll see A, U, G. But that is a C augmented chord. Now the last chord you need to become familiar with is the diminished chord. So let's again go back. We keep going back to this basic triad, the C major chord. And what we're going to do is we're going to flat the third like we did in the minor chord. We've got 1, flat 3, but then we're going to take the fifth. We're also going to flat the fifth. So it's root, flat third, and flat 5. Now we have a diminished chord. So that's going to be the notes C, E flat, and G flat. So those are your 4 chords. Now when I first learned those chords, I basically got a lesson like what I just showed you, where someone was like, okay, here's, the major chord, and you do this, change 1 note, you get the minor. Okay, now we're going to look at the augmented, we're going to raise the fifth. Now we're going to get the diminished, we're going to flat the third and flat the fifth. But I didn't really have a practical voicing. Like, I didn't want to be playing a C chord, and then if I had to go to C augmented, and have this weird disconnect where I would be playing maybe a 5-string chord or even a 4-string chord and then go to like a 3-string chord in a different place. It just didn't sound smooth. So next what I want to show you is actually practical chord voicings that I would use. Now I would use these, maybe in a secondary guitar part, like if someone was strumming away and I might go, and play like an arpeggio as like a secondary guitar part. But if I'm just playing guitar at home, I would play something like this. Again, I'm going to show you bar chords here. So we've got, for the C chord, I would play C bar chord like this. 3, 5, 5, 5. Playing just those middle strings there, starting on the 5th string. If we look at those notes, C, G, C, E. So that's root 5th, root 3rd. Now I'm going to make a minor out of that. And what I did was take this note, E, that's our 3rd of the chord, and drop it down a half step. Now I've got C minor. The next chord I would play is an augmented, and I might do that like this. This is a great chord. It's used in the blues all the time, like in tunes like Stormy Monday and stuff. You get that augmented sound. And that looks like this. The 3rd fret of the 5th string, 2nd fret of the 4th string, 1st fret on the 3rd string, and then doing a little bar there, also getting the 1st fret on the 2nd string. Now I'm not playing low E or high E. That is C augmented. So that's the root, 3rd, sharp 5, root. Now again, these are great chords because you can play that really all over the neck. Like that's the first chord used in Oh Darlin' by the Beatles. Oh darling. Right, you got that augmented sound there. Let's look at the last one. Here's how I would play a diminished chord. And this is going to be starting on that C root note, 3rd fret of the 5th string, 3, 4, 5, 4. That's C, G flat, C, E flat. That's your root, flat fifth, root, flat third. All right, so let's recap all 4 of those chords. Now remember that those triads that I first showed you are great, but these chords here are definitely more practical ones. This is like the next step in the lesson that I didn't get coming up, and I want to show you those just to make sure you've got them here. So we've got C major, C minor, C augmented, and C diminished. So remember, all those chords are movable. So if the song says you have to play a D augmented, then you might go, and you might play that there just by moving it up and placing the root note on the correct note. So those are the 4 must-know chords for all guitar players, so make sure you have those down. It's really going to help you with playing a lot of songs and not getting stuck with chords that may be unfamiliar. Again, I know the most common ones are the major and minor, but you can really get some beautiful sounds using the augmented and diminished as well. And to help you even more, be sure to grab my ultimate fretboard guide at the first link down below. And this is just going to dive deeper into understanding the neck. I'm going to show you 5 chords and 5 scales that all go together. And once you have this system down, you can use it to play in any style and any key. And you can grab it completely for free. Just go to johnmclennan.com/fretboard guide or click the first link down below as my gift to you. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and if you want to see more of these chords in action, then check out this video next.